Well, we're bringing it back to where it all began last year in a bedding area down low on our property. And we started cutting about this time last year. We're towards the end of January. And I was really excited for this spot. And I wanted to talk about how we created this bedding area, how we made it better, how we utilize it for hunting, you know, that whole combination for creating a bedding area. Because when you create a buck bedding area, you know, sometimes we're creating bedding areas because we want to increase the holding capacity of the land and big open timber. And in this case, we were really creating this bedding area specifically to hunt. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, there's controversy with, do you hunt a bedding area? Do you sit right in the middle of a bedding area? And I always hunt bedding areas, but I hunt to the outside edge. And so if you look around here, we're kind of at that edge right here. And my buck actually died right here from last year that I shot. Jen's actually died right up on the hill over here, just about 50 yards. And our stand location and water hole and everything's right over there about 80 to 100 yards. So it really starts getting open up there. So that's our access. We're coming through that open cover, and then we're coming to the edge of this bedding area, but not inside the bedding area. I hope that makes sense. We can keep hunting right over there and not spook things that are down here. And the thicker we make this back in here, less likely deer are to see us even spooking, even coming in the afternoon to hunt during the daylight. Let alone when we come down here in the morning, this is a location that's well away from food sources. So we're really getting in that buck bedroom, you know, that window. In fact, the buck I shot was 45. He's a 5-year-old I was after. And I had another 5-year-old Lucky come through right before that, about 10 minutes before. And I ended up passing Lucky, hoping for Bo or 45, one of the other ones. And we really want to see what Lucky does next year. But, and we think he made it through the season. We saw he made it through the season. We're hoping they avoid the sharpshooters that are around here. In some locations, they're killing deer for CWD, which is a whole nother video and controversy. But regardless, we're right on the edge of this bedding area, open over here, access down to here, and then you can see over this way. So a lot of this, we had some junk, we had some down timber in here anyways, but we really opened up the canopy to a lot higher degree. We created some hinge cuts, some hardwoods that we just cut completely, larger trees. But you can see it's pretty messy and gnarly in here. You know what I like about the winter time is the winter time really shows holes in your cover and holes in your habitat. You look around here, there's all kinds of trees that we cut and allowed sunlight to come in here, and even these logs on the ground. So you take a log like this. This equals horizontal cover, side cover. So that cover is about the same height as a deer, but they can still weave in and around all of this in here. We're not making a giant brush pile. We might make some cuttings here, some cuttings right over here, but we're really creating this with a purpose. We want to hold deer. We want them to have that maze and pocket effect. So not only are we giving them this cover in here with cutting, but look at all the regeneration that takes place on these box elders. That's all opportunity for browsing deer. And you can see that we have a lot of browse in here coming off our cuttings all around in this area. So we're not only giving them cover, we're giving them plenty of food. They have to have that browse. But again, we're creating this bedding area with a purpose, and that purpose is to hunt it. This extends into the property right here. We have another thick area that's about 80 to 100 yards away, another area that we were just looking at with another video. And I think, you know, we're doing pretty well here in this spot. I'd like to add to it a little bit, fill in some holes right up here. You can see a distant bench over there. I'd like to get some cover on that bench because that's a perfect spot for deer to bed. And especially as we get away from the stand location, I want to build this bedding area because not much for them to come right out there and cruise over that water hole and give us that opportunity. Jen came in here, she hunted an evening setup. Buck came out, went right up to the water hole, and she had a great shot, and he only went about 30 yards. And then I shot mine in the morning. So we only sat down here. Dante sat here once. I sat here a couple times. Jen sat here once. And really paid off with just a handful of sits with a couple really mature bucks. Dylan and I had a great sit, our first sit down here. And it's crazy, Dylan and I sat last night over in Wisconsin. That my tag's still good through January 31st. We had a good sit. We have a buck I'm after over there. He's 6 years old, going into a bedding area. We were on the wrong side that he came out of. We ended up getting a picture of him as he exited out about 90 degrees away from where we're at. And it was cool to know he was in there, and that's kind of what we planned. But a lot of our hunts, whether they're morning or evening, we're really looking for those mature bucks going to or from bedding areas. And I talk about all the time, we're always searching for that next great bedding area stand location. And this was one we created this year. We're going to create more this year. Or last year, we're going to create more this year. But we're always looking for that because a mature buck's bedding area is one of the most sacred locations in the woods. And so if you can design a bedding area like this with a purpose, it's well away from food, giving the deer plenty of cover and browse. And you notice this area doesn't have to be that big. I would estimate that it's about 2 to 3 acres in size. And a lot of it, there was portions of it that were already here, the type of timber that was here. We had a lot of box elder mixed in, so a lot of junk down here. Junk equals great bedding opportunity. And that's what led us. So it doesn't have to be really big. You'd rather focus on something that's 2 or 3 acres that's a complement to good cover behind it that you can actually look at and say, you know what, I know because this is small, deer are going to be relating to this, has very defined movement because it's smaller, and that creates that setup off to the side over like this. Now, if we were trying to fill this property, which we are, with deer and increase the holding capacity, then we need to make areas like this. They could be even a ½ acre in size, 2 or 3 acres in size if we're complementing something. But in this case, we'd like to see several of those per 40 acres, per 20 acres of holding cover. And that's really what you need. You don't need to cut down the woods. In fact, we focused on a lot of junk because any marketable timber that's in there isn't going to be as prolific in regeneration. It's not as favored by deer. So a lot of this junk timber is actually better for cutting out and making bedding areas than going into some of our big hardwood pockets we'd rather have harvested for timber in 10 to 20 years. So we're looking specifically for this junk timber. We're going to skip every 80 to 100 yards and really fill this entire area in here. So creating a buck bedding area with a purpose. It's really important. The purpose in this case is to hunt. It might be just trying to hold deer on the property, but when you have these very defined locations like this, it helps you set up for hunting. Doesn't matter if it's morning hunt, an evening hunt. Really have to have that way in and out. We have that up there with open timber in and out. We're going to keep that open timber. It happens to be great turkey roosting trees. And when you have great turkey roosting trees, that usually is the opposite of great deer habitat. They want big and open. And so in some percentage of your property, it's great to have open timber. We keep a lot, even in logging recommendations, we really look at those exterior areas that you're accessing and blowing your scent to keep whole and don't cut the timber, because everywhere you cut timber, you're going to have deer. We see people that'll cut 40 acres out of 40, and not only are they left with just a handful of tree stand trees, but they never know when they step foot on that property if they're going to spook a deer or not. We know when we come into here that they don't want to bed up in that opening up here. They want to bed down here in this thick cover in this flat. Lots of regeneration. They're hidden, good cover. So think about that the next time you're creating a bedding area. And heck, if you're looking for one, we always talk about, you can see these areas from the air, from the sky on aerial photos hunt-wise. We can look at those aerial photos and see those changes in color, changes in size and shape. You can see the lines of habitat change, where you see more of those coming together from the air, like a spot like this. But you can see this when you look at an aerial photo, really how broken it is compared to other areas on the property. That'll equal deer. And whether you're looking for that on public land or you're building it in private land, these are some of the ingredients that you have that you need to design a buck bedding area with a purpose. And that purpose, again, was for hunting. We started this journey a year ago down here, and it paid off huge this past year. And the cool thing is we've seen other mature bucks down here that we would have targeted for next year. So you can bet, it's kind of funny, you get an area like this, you shoot a big buck out of it. It seems like sometimes it's a year or two before another buck comes in, but we had so many bucks using this area down here in this location. We feel very confident for next year, and you can bet we cannot wait. And again, I started to say, I get sidetracked, especially without my whiteboard. Dylan and I started the season down here. Dylan, I believe that was my first sit.
I can't remember specifically if that was your first sit, but it was definitely mine.
Yeah, it was close. Great. It was mid-September, and I think it was my first sit. And last night we ended the season hunting together. I might sit 1 or 2 more times this week, but the tag's running out here soon, and it was interesting to kind of reflect back on the season last night and and hunt together. We started end the season. We do that a lot, and we can't wait to start the season, and it might be in this spot for 2023. Hey, I'm really excited to introduce to you our Hills and Thermals web class. It's something we worked on all year. We're trying to put lots of facets of scouting, aerial imagery, diagrams on the whiteboard to really teach you how the wind moves through hills and how you should find bedding areas, how it relates to deer movements in general, how that relates to this is a bedding area stand, this is a food source afternoon stand. We really tried to put this together and offer you a complete picture of how to navigate hills and find better success consistently where you hunt.